Check. Hello, friends and enemies. Welcome to the show. Here we are again. This time for Eyes to See Vision Beyond the Narrative, a show we do mostly once a week. Today's only Tuesday. Normally I do them on Thursday, but we got some things to do. So I wanted to get this one up there. Now, the last Eyes to See was about the trial of Tyler Robinson. And I think that was a good little synopsis. Since I watched that, what do you call it when you put it out in the world? Produced it or published it, whatever. I've been doing a little more research and I'm realizing the biggest aspect of this situation that is intriguing me has to do with the division. I don't even know how to describe it. So I'm fighting to describe it in this paper. Not necessarily that specifically. This paper mostly addresses well, you'll see. But going forward, what I find fascinating is how so many people that normally would have been skeptical of the government's narrative, are just 100% on board with the government's narrative. And that is the biggest red flag to me. There's plenty of little red flags where the evidence doesn't seem to line up. Yet, so many people are saying it's open and shut. It's overwhelming. So we're going to get into that. But going forward, I'm going to try and focus more on the social divide. We're going to talk about Rittenhouse. Remember Rittenhouse? The youngster accused of murder. Similar situation? Maybe not. I mean, there was definitely video evidence of him being chased and attacked and shooting back. And from my perspective, day one, it was like, that's self-defense. That's literally what guns are for. To protect you from the mob, protect you from a guy going to hit you in the face with a skateboard, and protect you from a guy with a gun. And wouldn't you know it, but the court found not guilty. But it divided I don't want to say it divided the country. The country was already divided. And that same division carried through that trial. If you know what I mean. This one's different. This division is through the same side. And we need to investigate that. We need to figure this out. It just smells suspiciously like John F. Kennedy, doesn't it? All right, here we go. Essay 13, ladies and gentlemen. The gray areas. Oh, I forgot to change the title. Hold on. I had a better title. Where did it go? Yeah. All right. Essay 13, when the same evidence creates two realities. You keep telling me the evidence against Tyler Robinson is overwhelming. I have heard that word from prosecutors, political commentators, online influencers, and people I normally respect. Overwhelming. They repeat it as though repeating it settles the case. Tyler was the man on the roof. Tyler carried the rifle. Tyler fired the shot. Tyler jumped from the building. Tyler confessed. The entire story is presented as a finished picture, but anyone who notices that several pieces are still blurry will get accused of refusing to see what is directly in front of him. Fine. Show me which piece of evidence overwhelms reasonable doubt. Do not show me a pile. Take the evidence out one piece at a time and tell me exactly what it proves. Not what prosecutors say it proves. Not what an investigator believes it proves. Not what becomes obvious after someone has already told me the conclusion. Tell me what the evidence itself establishes before assumptions are added to it. Start with the surveillance footage. Prosecutors say the videos show Tyler Robinson moving around Utah Valley University campus, reaching the roof, taking a sniper position, firing the shot, and fleeing. An investigator identified Robinson in court as the person shown in the recordings. The enhanced compilation was not broadcast publicly, although people inside the courtroom were permitted to view it. News reports still describe the rooftop figure as a person prosecutors say or believe is Robinson. That wording matters because the image does not plainly identify itself. Show me the clear picture of Tyler Robinson's face. If the state has one, show it. If the video contains some physical feature that distinguishes Tyler from Lance Twiggs or another man with a similar height and build, explain it. Do not point toward a distant figure and tell me who I am seeing. I want to know how the identification was made. Was it facial recognition? Clothing? Gait? Phone location? Vehicle movements? Witness recognition? A combination of those things may eventually make a convincing case, but the public footage alone does not allow an ordinary viewer to look at the person and say without narration that that is Tyler Robinson. The identification is being supplied by the people presenting the footage. Once they tell us the figure is Tyler, every vague detail begins working in their favor. The size looks right, the posture looks right, the clothing looks right, the route looks right. The conclusion is placed inside the viewer's mind and begins interpreting the picture for him. That is not necessarily deception. Investigators routinely assemble several recordings and use information unavailable to the public. The mistake comes when the commentators take the state's interpretation, the commentators, and describe it as though the image itself settles identity. It does not. The prosecution may be correct, but the prosecution may be correct is very different from the video clearly proves it. And I would even say the cell phone pinging data to me would mean a lot more. But even still, we're not gonna deviate. We'll get to it after. I have watched people study those images and insist that the figure looks exactly like Tyler. Other people insist it looks much more like Lance Twiggs. Both sides are filling an indistinct image, mind you, with sunglasses. Also, if you take a quick little gander at the earlobes of the person in said video, you will notice that they are distinct, detached earlobes, to which I have some. But if you look at Tyler Robinson's earlobes, his look more like that. I forget what those are called, but I don't know. There's a reason people wear sunglasses, to not be recognized by facial recognition. A blurry man does not become Tyler because you trust the investigation. He does not become Twiggs because you distrust it. The honest description remains a blurry man until enough independent evidence identifies him. Move to the rifle. Investigators recovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel near the campus. Suspiciously, a few days after they couldn't find it day one. Couldn't find it day two. Anyway, we're going to stop being sarcastic here. Prosecutors say Tyler Robinson's DNA was found on the rifle, ammunition, and other related items. Lance Twiggs's DNA was reportedly found on the towel and on the screwdriver. Now, before anyone treats that as proof of who carried the rifle or who fired it, the DNA itself has to be verified, the collection and testing have to be examined, and the history of those objects has to be understood. DNA can show that a person's biological material was present on an object. It cannot tell us when it was deposited, why the person handled the object, who else had access to it, or what happened afterward. Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs lived together. They did more than that together. If both men had access to the rifle, the ammunition, the towel, or the tools, then the presence of DNA may prove contact without proving murder. The state still has to connect Robinson to the weapon at the time of the shooting, not merely to objects he may have handled before or after. Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs lived together and were romantically involved. Blech. Shared access is not some wild invention produced to rescue a stranger from evidence. These men shared a home in some portion of their private lives. Before DNA becomes proof of murder, we need a clear account of where the rifle was normally stored, who had access to it, who had handled it before, how many times, when did they go shooting, had you ever shot the rifle before, who had access to the ammunition, and whether any of those objects moved through their shared residence. Perhaps that history has been established in evidence not yet available to the public. Perhaps prosecution will show that Twiggs never had meaningful access to the gun, and that Robinson possessed it immediately before the shooting. If so, then show it. Until then, DNA on an accessible object establishes association more readily than action. Twiggs's DNA on the towel cannot be dismissed as meaningless, while Robinson's DNA is treated as a complete firing sequence. The same basic question applies to both men. How did the material get there? If there is an innocent explanation for Twiggs, there may also be an innocent explanation for Robinson. If Robinson's DNA demands scrutiny, Twiggs' DNA deserves scrutiny too. You do not get to use the same type of evidence as a weapon against one man and a shrug for the other merely because the prosecution has already chosen its defendant. The bullet creates another gray area. An initial federal analysis, ATF, could not conclusively connect the bullet fragment recovered during Charlie Kirk's autopsy, allegedly, to the rifle in question. Prosecutors have argued that inconclusive does not mean the rifle was excluded, which is correct. A damaged fragment may not preserve enough useful markings to make it a conclusive comparison. The defense cannot honestly say the test proved a different gun was used. The state cannot honestly say the fatal fragment has been scientifically tied to this rifle. The result is inconclusive. People keep grabbing inconclusive evidence and forcing it to choose a side. Supporters of the official account say the rifle must still be the murder weapon because everything else points toward it. Skeptics say the failed match proves another shooter or weapon. Neither conclusion came from the ballistics result. The test did not answer the question. That failure matters in a case where prosecutors intend to seek the death penalty. The state says this rifle fired the fatal shot. The recovered bullet fragment has not been conclusively tied to it. That may be an unavoidable limitation of the physical evidence, but it remains a limitation nonetheless. Calling the rest of the case overwhelming does not fix that. The communications are presented as though they close every remaining gap. Prosecutors displayed alleged text messages and Discord communications in which Robinson reportedly accepted responsibility, discussed hiding the rifle, and expressed regret. If those records are authentic, complete, freely written by Robinson, and accurately attributed to him, they may become some of the strongest evidence in the case. However, they still have to be authenticated rather than accepted because a prosecutor put them on a screen. Those are not unreasonable questions. People share devices. Romantic partners know passwords. Accounts remain logged in. Messages can be deleted, edited, forwarded, selectively captured, or stripped of context. A sophisticated intelligence agency would possess access far beyond anything available to ordinary roommate. Now, that does not prove an agency wrote the message. It means digital evidence must be traced carefully before the words on a screen are treated as gospel, as though Tyler personally spoke them in the courtroom. Some of the alleged admissions reportedly appeared in a Discord group involving other people, which would make a simple private exchange between Twiggs and Robinson less central. Even then, the state must show that Robinson controlled the account and authored the posts. A screen name is not a fingerprint. A screenshot is not a complete forensic history. The evidence may survive that examination. It should have to. Then we reached Lance Twiggs. Twiggs was Robinson's roommate and romantic partner. His DNA was found on the towel surrounding the rifle. Did we already go through this? Don't tell me I wrote it twice. He gave recorded statements describing Robinson's alleged admissions and remorse. He received use immunity, meaning his statements cannot be used against him in a potential criminal prosecution. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you know what a red flag means, but that's a fucking red flag. Prosecutors used his account to help connect Robinson to the weapon, messages, motive, and conduct after the killing. But maybe Twiggs is telling the truth. Robinson may have returned home, confessed, and involved the person closest to him in the aftermath. Twiggs may have been an unfortunate witness carrying information about a terrible act committed by someone he loved. But suppose he is not merely a witness. Suppose Twiggs was involved, compromised, threatened, recruited, or protecting himself. Suppose he had access to Robinson's weapon, belongings, accounts, and devices. Suppose the figure in the surveillance footage is Twiggs rather than Robinson. Suppose his immunity gave him room to tell investigators a story coached by an intelligence agency that directed every important question away from himself. If that were the case, what would we expect him to say? Well, he would say Robinson confessed. He would say Robinson regretted it. He would explain why incriminating objects connected to Robinson existed. He would interpret the messages. He would provide the emotional and personal details that police could never obtain from laboratory testing. He would give the public a story that turns scattered evidence into a recognizable person with a motive. That possibility does not prove Twiggs framed Robinson. Possibility is the word here. It does show why his accusation cannot be used as proof that he deserves no further suspicion. A witness does not become reliable simply by accusing someone else. Immunity does not prove guilt. but it protects a witness while he speaks. His access, his incentives, conduct, contradictions, device history, physical movements, and relationship with Robinson need to be examined with the same seriousness being applied to the defendant. The prosecution's evidence may not be as independent as the public has been led to believe. Several pieces could depend on the assumption that Twiggs is truthful and uninvolved. And you know what they say when you assume. If he had helped interpret the alleged confession, supplied the personal account, had access to the shared home, and left DNA on the towel around the rifle, then he is not standing outside the evidence. He is part of it. A pile can look larger than it is when the pieces all come from the same source. The confession supports the messages. The messages support Twiggs' story. Twiggs' story explains the rifle. The rifle helps identify the man in the footage. The footage is then used to confirm that Twiggs was telling the truth. And the circle may contain real evidence, but it should not be mistaken for several unrelated lines of proof until each part has been independently verified. Reasonable doubt does not require the defense to solve Charlie Kirk's murder. Chew on that for a minute. I'll wait. Reasonable doubt does not require the defense to solve Charlie Kirk's murder. It does not have to name the real shooter, identify every accomplice, expose an intelligence operation, and produce a complete minute-by-minute reconstruction before anyone is permitted to doubt the state's case. The state made the accusation. The state wants to imprison or execute Tyler Robinson. The state must prove now that Tyler was the man on the roof, that he possessed and fired the weapon, that the messages were his, that any confession was genuine, and that reasonable alternatives do not fit the evidence. The current hearing uses a lower standard. The judge is deciding whether there's probable cause to send Robinson to trial, not whether guilt has been proved beyond a reasonable doubt. Final arguments on probable cause are scheduled for September 1, 2026. Yeah, seems a little sus, but whatever. Meaning that this trial gives no conclusion of anything, including whether or not there's probable cause to go to trial. All right, enough evidence to hold a trial is not enough evidence to execute a man. The distinction has disappeared from public conversation. Influencers speak as though a preliminary hearing were the end of the trial rather than the beginning of one. They watch prosecutors present their evidence without a jury verdict and announce that the case has been demolished, settled, closed, and proved beyond any argument. Some of these people have spent years warning their audiences not to trust law enforcement, intelligence agencies, prosecutors, edited footage, selective leaks, or media narratives. But now they repeat the prosecution's favorite adjective in lockstep. Overwhelming. Perhaps they all reach that conclusion independently. People who watch the same hearings and consider the same evidence can honestly agree. The uniform language is still odd, though, isn't it? 24 commentators use the same word over and over again, applying the same moral pressure, and accuse any doubters of the same defects. Asking questions becomes disrespectful to Charlie, cruel to his widow, irresponsible, divisive, or insane. Nobody needs to send secret memo for that pattern to form. Although there may have been one. Probably sent out by TPUSA, from what I can tell. Influencers watch one another. They share audiences, personal relationships, political access, donors, conferences, and professional interests. Once several powerful voices establish the acceptable conclusion, the social cost of disagreement becomes obvious. A commentator may genuinely believe the case is overwhelming, while also understanding that saying otherwise could damage friendships, access, reputation, and income. The skeptics can behave exactly the same way. A vague figure becomes twigs because they want it to be twigs. An inconclusive ballistics report becomes proof of another weapon. Digital messages become CIA fabrications before the device records have been examined. Every gap becomes evidence of an operation, and every piece that appears to support Robinson's guilt becomes evidence of how cruelly he was framed. Suspicion is not evidence merely because government deception has happened before. Intelligence agencies have the means to surveil people, exploit weaknesses, recruit assets, manipulate communications, and construct cover stories. Charlie Kirk was a powerful political voice with influence around Donald Trump, and people hostile to Trump had many, many reasons to want Kirk silenced. Those facts make intelligence involvement possible. They do not prove it happened in this case. The CIA theory must live under the same rule as the prosecution's theory. Show the evidence. Show the contact. Money, handler, blackmail, communication, surveillance trial, technical intrusion, or operational connection. Do not ask me to accept covert operation because the government is capable of one. Capability gives investigators a direction to examine. It does not give the public a verdict. Gray areas do not belong to either side. The unclear rooftop figure does not belong to the prosecution. The inconclusive bullet fragment does not belong to the skeptics. Shared DNA does not belong to whoever tells the most satisfying story about it. Missing information is not empty space where people may install their preferred conclusion. That habit is destroying our ability to reason. People begin with what they want to be true, find the uncertain portion of the evidence, and quietly pour their conclusion into it. Then they point toward the filled space as proof. The assumption disappears inside the argument. I have seen this division enter into my own marriage. My wife and I can watch the same material and see the case differently. The disagreement quickly becomes more personal than I feel it should. One person hears skepticism and thinks paranoia. The other hears certainty and thinks, what? How can you be certain? We stop discussing the strength of DNA inference or the identification of a figure on the roof. We begin defending whether we are competent to recognize reality. My wife may be right. I may be right. One of us may see a connection the other has missed. Both of us may be wrong because we are working from an incomplete public record assembled by people with their own limitations and interests. None of those possibilities makes either of us stupid or dishonest. A political murder should not be allowed to recruit husbands and wives into opposing armies before the evidence has been tested. We can argue hard. We can challenge one another's assumptions. At least I thought we could most of my life. We can say that an explanation does not fit or that a claim has outrun the proof. We should not confuse disagreement with corruption of character. Kyle Rittenhouse's case showed how badly political desire can distort visible evidence. People watched recordings of him being chased, struck, kicked, and confronted by an armed man, yet many continued describing the event through a political story that the videos never supported. The jury eventually acquitted him on all charges after prosecutors failed to disprove self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt. As a matter of fact, people on one side of that were literally saying he went down there with the intention and just shot black people like ducks in a barrel. Like, we just want stories to make sense in our own mind because it sounds better. The Robinson case is harder because the most important footage is very less clear. The Rittenhouse videos showed the physical encounters directly enough for ordinary people to evaluate them. Here, the public is being asked to accept an identity attached to a distant, pixelated figure. Connect that figure to recovered rifle, connect the rifle to an inconclusive bullet evidence, and connect the entire chain through digital records and the account of an immunized romantic partner. Maybe all of those connections are sound, but they still have to be proved. Tyler Robinson may have killed Charlie Kirk. Lance Twiggs could be telling the truth. The rifle may be the murder weapon. The messages may be authentic, although they are fucking strange, aren't they? I'm so sorry, my love. The rooftop figure may be Tyler. A jury may eventually hear the complete case and find that the evidence fits together without any reasonable doubt. The word may is doing honest work in those sentences. The other possibilities require the same restraint. Twiggs may have played a larger role. Another person may have fired the shot. Evidence may have been manipulated. An intelligence agency may have had involvement. Tyler may be a patsy, whether completely innocent or involved in something smaller than the crime attributed to him. May is not proof. I am skeptical because the state is asking the public. Actually, I could just say, I am skeptical because of the state. Period. Like, what happened to the youth of this country? The rebels, the ones that were distrusting, the skeptics. How is it that they are the ones jumping on unestablished certainty? I'm literally scratching my head day after day. We're going to get to the bottom of it, folks, though. Stick around. Oh, where were we? We almost got her. Charlie Kirk. No, I am skeptical because the state is asking the public to make several assumptions where the evidence still remains gray. I refuse to fill those gray areas in the state's favor merely because prosecutors, influencers, politicians, or grieving people want their uncertainty resolved. I also refuse to fill them with the most dramatic alternative because distrust feels more intelligent than obedience. Charlie Kirk was killed, allegedly. Someone fired the shot. Some physical evidence exists. Cameras recorded parts of what happened. Digital records can be examined. Witnesses can be questioned. Devices can be traced. The event occurred in one particular way, no matter how many stories are built around it. For those of you that don't know, the one particular way is the truth. It's actually the way it happened, no matter what story you want to spin. The state says Tyler Robinson did it. Well, then the state must prove Tyler Robinson did it. Not a man who resembles him. Not a rifle he may have handled. Not a bullet that cannot be conclusively connected to that rifle. Not messages that have not been completely authenticated before a jury. Not an accusation supplied by an immunized partner whose own DNA appears among the physical evidence. Tyler Robinson. If the evidence establishes that, convict him. If the prosecution cannot establish it without filling every gray area with an assumption, then it has not proved the man guilty. It has only proved that it can tell a complete story from incomplete evidence. A complete story is not the same thing as the truth. The end. I'm still here. I'm a big fan of truth. We may have spoken of it before. Matter of fact, I do have a paper right there in front of me called Uncertainty that we published on this show, I believe. Mm-hmm. It is 100% the MO, modus operandi, look it up, of intelligence agencies to manipulate truth. And they do it in many different ways. Some covert, some overt. Many, many, many verifiable stories of CIA involving themselves in media, FBI. See, humans are gullible. Myself included, we're not that smart. We could be incredibly smarter. Especially now. We should start training kids reason and logic from day one because this stuff is getting insane. We're going to run a few scenarios across the table here. Let's say that I was a person that was convinced in my heart of hearts that Tyler Robinson is the murderer. And I have my handful of reasons. And this trial, this preliminary hearing goes to TV. And the same last week that took place takes place again. And I myself am a commentator on the internet afterwards. I might say something like this. I do feel like Tyler Robinson is the one responsible for taking Charlie's life. I don't know exactly how it happened. It does seem like the evidence is just, you would want it to be more. How many? Bro, I have 12 security cameras on my house. How is it that there's only one security camera pointed in the direction of the freaking shooting, alleged? And I mean, there's buildings all over the place. Can you tell me that there's not one other building that shows this person? Or one other cell phone footage or video footage or, oh, I know, the 4K or possibly 8K camera set up directly behind Charlie Kirk, looking into the crowd, up on the building. Zoom that motherfucker in. Why are we not hearing about that? Remember? The same camera that was sitting there with its SD card and the guy just conveniently jumped on it, snatched out the SD card and bounced? Because, I don't know, it was just instinct. Just instinct, I guess. Well, put that SD card in a computer and tell me what it looks like. If it's this super duper 4K and we're going to zoom it in. Bro, I work with cameras. I know what you can do and what you can't. I guarantee you, I mean, maybe that surveillance camera is a 4K camera, which I would, if I'm the prosecutor or the defense, I'm going to say, tell me the make and model of that surveillance camera. Tell me the location of every single surveillance camera around that building. Tell me the location of every single surveillance camera around the adjacent buildings. Now, are none of them pointed in this direction? Or is it the case that in the same vein of Epstein, that the cameras just conveniently died and stopped working? You've got to be able to step back. I mean, it's easy for me. It's easy for me to just think Tyler Robinson did it. We want to button this case up. We want to put it underground. It's a tragedy, and it sounds bad that this gay-ass lover dude, who, mind you, has never had a violent day in his life, although his romantic partner was accused of attempted murder or assault with a knife or something against a family member, and was extremely irrational, suffering from bipolar disorder, also gender dysphoria, among many other things of depression. Anyway, I forgot what I was saying. Yeah, but it's easy for me to say Tyler Robinson did it and just wrap that up in a bow and just swallow it like the red pill it is, or blue pill. Whichever pill you decide. To me, that's a white pill. A falsely optimistic pill. I'm going to vomit the pills up and we're going to start over. That's the way I'm going to look at it. We can dig down to the core. And we have the opportunity here on this channel to work through these issues. First off, you guys got to start watching the fucking videos. And if you do watch the video, make some comments. Get a little discussion going. You know what I might do? I might start live streaming Eyes to See during the day. Because that's how all those Rittenhouse lawyers got famous. And I ain't no lawyer, but you don't even need to be anymore. AI is taking over law, right? There are basic fundamentals to law. And it was a deep interest and hobby of mine to one of my favorite classes in my brief stint into post-secondary education was finite math. And I was fascinated with it. I actually think I still have my book. I should bust that sucker out. If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. Or A is equal to B. B is equal to C. Therefore, A is equal to C. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the most fundamental statement of logic. Showing an example of if this and this are the same, and this are the same, then that and that are the same. But what does it actually mean? That is an example identifying the word is or equal. And you can take that down a rabbit hole that goes super deep. And I've spent many hours in that rabbit hole. And with a healthy mind, I've come out fine. But when my mind was unhealthy, things get a little wild. We've forgotten how to go from A to B to C. Now it's just C because I told you. C because we want to be done. We want to wrap this up. You don't want to question the widow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to have that privilege this time. You know why? Because this was one of the most, one could argue, this is the most high-profile assassination of all time. Based on the internet, social media, and the fact that we have more people on the earth than we ever have, allegedly. You can be certain of nothing. I have a paper. Do we need to go over that one again? Of what can a man be certain? I won't bore you with that one today. But eventually when I get around to it and I'm publishing these as separate videos, just the papers themselves, I will publish that one. Actually, I need to revise it a little bit. The deepest thinkers in human history have wrestled with that question, and so have those of us who would not dare call ourselves deep thinkers. One thing I've noticed in my own life is this: doubting one's certainty usually comes after a person first feels quite certain. Doubt does not often begin the journey, it interrupts it. That's funny. I mean, we're literally talking about the certainty of all these people. It's so overwhelming. I mean, there's just no question about it. It's got to be him. They have a picture of his license plate. Did you also hear that they gave evidence of seeing a bald guy driving? Yes. Did you mention it? No. And did they say that they saw multiple people in the car? Yeah, they did. Did you mention that? No, sorry. Bro, are you serious? When I first began trying to think seriously, I held a naive assumption. I believed that if I simply doubted everything, if I questioned every claim and suspended all confidence, then certainty would eventually emerge from the fog. I imagine skepticism as a kind of neutral starting line. I'm sure many learned scholars would remind me that entire traditions of philosophy were built in the fertile soil of skepticism, and that is true. But even skepticism is almost always a reaction. It's born in response to someone else's certainty. The more certain for the simple case that we have a legal procedure in this country, that's what we should talk about on the next paper. What is it? Oh, come on. My brain's not working terribly well today. That paper cooked it. Cooked it. I mean, at least you would think that in this country where we believe man innocent until proven guilty, and it's better to let 10 guilty men free than the lock up one innocent man. What is that? Formulation? Stockholm? Formulation. I wonder if this will work. Check. Blackstone's formulation. Can you give me an example of that? Or an explanation of that? My understanding is it's better for 10 guilty men to go free before one innocent man is convicted. And how does that establish itself in the formation of the United States law and culture? I broke the internet. Remember when we used to do Grok? Oh, I can do Grok for one more day. I signed up for the free trial for 7 days. Tomorrow I have to cancel. Actually, I should cancel now because that's how that works. Yeah, let's ask Grok because I don't want to read this. Blackstone's formulation. Can you give me an example of that or an explanation of that? My understanding is that it's better for 10 guilty men to go free before one innocent man is convicted. And how does that establish itself in the formation of the United States law and culture? And is it based on Job, the story of Job, I believe?
Yeah, your understanding's spot on. Blackstone's formulation, from William Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England in the 1760s, says it's better that 10 guilty people escape than one innocent person suffer. It's a guiding principle for criminal law. Err on the side of caution to protect the innocent, even if some guilty folks walk free. It shaped early American law big time. The founding fathers cited Blackstone constantly. His commentaries were like their legal Bible. Benjamin Franklin bumped the number up to 100 guilty, and John Adams leaned on it during the Boston Massacre trial. It fed into our beyond a reasonable doubt standard, and the whole presumption of innocence baked into the Constitution and Bill of Rights. It's not directly from the story of Job, though. That's about suffering and faith, not criminal justice. But the idea has older roots, like in the Bible's Exodus 23:7, which says, "Don't slay the innocent," and Jewish scholar Maimonides ran with it centuries earlier. So your gut's close on the biblical vibe, just the wrong book.
Yeah, I think it was actually more Lot and Abram, and whether God was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And they said, if I find 10 righteous people, I will not. And then the conclusion and the what is it? Oh my God, I can't think of that fucking word. The negotiation with God has to do with going from 10 down to 5, down to 1. Am I correct?
You're thinking of Abraham bargaining with God over Sodom, not Lot directly. He starts at 50 righteous people, then talks God down step by step, 45, 40, 30, 20, and finally 10. God agrees that for the sake of 10 righteous, he won't destroy the city. It's a really common comparison people make to Blackstone's idea, better to spare the many guilty to protect the few innocent. But it's not the direct source. Blackstone was pulling from English legal tradition, though that biblical story does capture a similar spirit of not sweeping up the righteous with the wicked.
Apparently he didn't find 10 righteous people because that place got smoked.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't find 10, so Sodom got destroyed. That's why Lot and his family barely made it out. The city was that far gone.
Man. I can't stand. If it was $20 a month, maybe. I think it's 30. Let me see. You know, on an Apple phone, you can go to your subscriptions somewhere. Oh, I think you click on your name under settings. Yeah, and then subscriptions are right there. And Grok renews July 16th. Ooh, I have one more day. What do we have? Renews August 14th. $14 a month. Are you kidding me? Wow, I gotta cancel a bunch of these. We were watching basketball on Peacock, so we gotta get rid of that. Still use YouTube and OnX. It's Instagram, iCloud, Grok. Cancel. Cancel free trial. If you cancel now, you can still access your subscription until July 16th. Okay, so we can rock and roll tomorrow. I'm not even doing a show tomorrow. Shit. Maybe I should just do 1 month. I think it would be fun. It'd be an educational show, wouldn't it? January 3rd, 2027. Easy stats for basketball. I believe that's $5.99 a year. Yeah, that's okay. Audible and Apple Music. You know, I've had Audible subscription for I don't know how many years. I have over 300 books in it. I like listening to books. As you might as well, because you're listening to me. Anyway, we are approaching the hour mark, and I'm getting a little hungry, and I got a lot of work to do, as usual. So I'm going to sign off here unless there's a comment or two. No comments. It shows 2 viewers, but you never know what that means. It's probably Twitch bots. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to tighten it up a little. I'm going to start working on next week's soon. If I sit down for like 30 minutes a day, then I don't have to do the 3 to 4 hour a day thing. And I don't know what direction this is going to head. Oh, I did want to talk about this. So see, the conclusion to the preliminary hearing isn't scheduled until just September 1st, okay? This is not a fast-moving trial. Old TR, we're going to start calling him TR. He's locked up in the slammer. I wouldn't mind hearing from him. You know what I would like to do? I'd like to put those 2 monkeys together in the same room. One at the end of each, one at opposite ends of each, of the table. And then I just start asking questions. When is it that you met Tyler? Oh, I don't really know the year. The first dude that you fucked in the ass and you don't know when you met him? The one thing we haven't heard is from Tyler. There's just so many suspicious things that you think would have been done differently if this case was cut and dry. But to me, when you have to craft a case with a patsy, would it look any different? Would the motives and techniques to wrap this up and get rid of it look any different? I will tell you this. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free when you see Tyler Robinson end his life. Whether it be suicide or some prison shanking or Maybe just some guy that shoots him on the way to the courtroom. Why? Because what better way to package it up and wrap it and ship it out than to kill the guy you were going to try? Lance Twiggs, immunity, gets off scot-free. The CIA never releases the fact that he was into kiddie porn, allegedly. And him and his family... Geez, I heard that somebody paid Tyler Robinson's family $1 million because they turned him in. Did I dream that? I freaking heard that. Oh, let's ask Rob. So I feel like I heard that somebody paid Tyler Robinson's family $1 million because of how great they felt that they turned their own son in. Is that true?
No, that's not true. It's a viral rumor that popped up after the reward for info leading to Tyler Robinson's arrest hit about $1.15 million. His dad did help authorities get him by confronting him after recognizing the suspect photos, but the family didn't get paid that money, and there's no record of anyone giving them $1 million for turning him in. Fact checkers called the donation story false.
Gotcha. But doesn't it stand to reason that they would be able to request the reward for turning the alleged perpetrator in, or does he have to be convicted first?
It stands to reason they could request it, but in practice, it's complicated. Rewards are usually paid after an arrest based on the information provided, though many require a conviction or at least charges sticking before the money is released. The key is whether the tip directly led to the arrest. Family members turning in relatives aren't automatically disqualified, but for this case, there's been a ton of online debate and rumors about whether his dad would even be eligible or would accept it. So far, none of the reward money has been paid out to them.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to keep Grok on the team here for at least a month. I got some good ideas, some plans. Let's get after it. All right. Still 2 viewers and no comments. So I'm going to sign off. Good night. Good riddance. Good day. Let's see. Tomorrow's Wednesday. The wife's birthday, actually. So we will not be doing a show. I might throw one in on Thursday or Friday. Now that I think of it. I was going to be out of town through Monday, but I ain't going to be. So if you had any nefarious plans of messing with my abode, just know that you will be met by Colt Smith & Wesson. Allegedly. No, I don't have any. I lost them all in a boating accident. So yeah, I guess that's it. Good night. I'll see you on the next one. Go forth using reason and logic.